can always send Prince Victor my head with an apology." "If I have to send him anything, I'll send him a sky full of ships and a planet full of hellburners. You did perfectly right, Otto. Exactly what I'd have done in your place." There the matter rested. There were no more raids by Xochitl ships on any of their trade planets. No mention of the incident was made in any of the reports sent back to Graham. The Graham situation was deteriorating rapidly enough. Finally, there was an audio-visual message from Angus himself. He was seated on his throne, wearing his crown, and he began speaking from the screen abruptly. "We, Angus, King of Graham and Tanith, are highly displeased with our subject, Lucas, Prince and Viceroy of Tanith. We consider ourselves very badly served by Prince Trask. We therefore command him to return to Graham, and render to us account of his administration of our colony and realm of Tanith." After some hasty preparations, Trask recorded a reply. He was sitting on a throne himself, and wore a crown just as ornate as King Angus, and robes of white and black Imhotep furs. "We, Lucas, Prince of Tanith," he began, "are quite willing to acknowledge the suzerainty of the King of Graham, formerly Duke of Wordshaven. It is our earnest desire, if possible, to remain at peace and friendship with the King of Graham, and to carry on trade relations with him and with his subjects. We must, however, reject absolutely any efforts on his part to dictate the internal policies of our realm of Tanith. It is our earnest hope—" Damn it, he'd said earnest. He should have thought of some other word. "That no act on the part of His Majesty the King of Graham will create any breach in the friendship existing between his realm and ours." 3 months later, the next ship, which had left Graham while King Angus' summons was still in hyperspace, brought Baron Rathmore. Shaking hands with him as he left the landing craft, Trask wanted to know if he'd been sent out as the new Viceroy. Rathmore started to laugh, and ended by cursing vilely. "No, I've come out to offer my sword to the King of Tanith," he said. "Prince of Tanith for the time being," Trask corrected. "The sword, however, is most acceptable. I take it you've had all of our blessed sovereign you can stomach?" "Lucas, you have enough ships and men here to take Graham," Rathmore said. "Proclaim yourself King of Tanith, and then lay claim to the throne of Graham, and the whole planet will rise for you." Rathmore had lowered his voice, but even so, the open landing stage was no place for this sort of talk. He said so, ordered a couple of the locals to collect Rathmore's luggage, and got him into a hall car, taking him down to his living quarters. After they were in private, Rathmore began again. "It's more than anybody can stand. There isn't one of the old great nobility he hasn't alienated, or one of the minor barons, the landholders and industrialists, the people who were always the backbone of Graham. And it goes from them down to the common folk. Assessments on the lords, taxes on the people, inflation to meet the taxes, high prices, debased coinage. Everybody's being beggared except this rabble of new lords he has around him, and that slut of a wife and her greedy kinfolk." Trask stiffened. "You're not speaking of Queen Flavia, are you?" he asked softly. Rathmore's mouth opened slightly. "Great Satan, don't you know? No, of course not. The news would have come on the same ship I did. Why, Angus divorced Flavia. He claimed that she was incapable of giving him an heir to the throne. He remarried immediately." The girl's name meant nothing to Trask. He did know of her father, a Baron Valdiva. He was lord of a small estate south of the Wardlands and west of New Haven. Most of his people were out-and-out bandits and cattle rustlers, and he was as close to being one himself as he could get. Nice family he's married into. A credit to the dignity of the throne. Yes. You wouldn't know this Lady Demoiselle Evita. She was only 17 when you left Graham, and hadn't begun to acquire a reputation outside her father's lands. She's made up for lost time since, though, and she has enough uncles and aunts and cousins and ex-lovers and whatnot to fill out an infantry regiment, and every one of them's at court with both hands out to grab everything they can. How does Duke Joris like this?" The Duke of Biglersport was Queen Flavia's brother. "I dare say he's less than delighted." "He's hiring mercenaries, is what he's doing, and buying combat contragravity. Lucas, why don't you come back? You have no idea what a reputation you have on Graham now. Everybody would rally to you." He shook his head. "I have a throne, here on Tanith. On Graham I want nothing. I'm sorry for the way Angus turned out. I thought he'd make a good king. But since he's made an intolerable king, the lords and people of Graham will have to get rid of him for themselves. I have my own tasks here." Rathmore shrugged. "I was afraid that would be it," he said. "Well, I offered my sword. I won't take it back. I can help you in what you're doing on Tanith." The captain of the Free Space Viking damn-thing was named Roger Van Morville Estersan, which meant that he was some sword-worlder's acknowledged bastard by a woman of one of the old Federation planets. His mother's people could have been Nergallers. He had coarse black hair, a mahogany-brown skin, and red-brown, almost maroon eyes. He tasted the wine the robot poured for him and expressed appreciation, then began unwrapping the parcel he had brought in. "Something I found while raiding on Tetragrammaton," he said. "I thought you might like to have it. It was made on Graham." It was an automatic pistol, with a belt and holster. The leather was bisonoid hide. The buckle of the belt was an oval enameled with a crescent, pale blue on black. The pistol was a plain 10mm military model with grooved plastic grips. On the receiver it bore the stamp of the House of Hoylbar, the firearms manufacturers of Glaspeth. Evidently it was one of the arms Duke Omfrey had provided for Andre Dunnan's original mercenary company. Tetragrammaton? He glanced over to the big board. There was no previous report from that planet. "How long ago?" "I'd say about 300 hours. I came from there directly, less than 250 hours. Dunnan's ships had left the planet 3 days before I got there." That was practically sizzling hot. Well, something like that had to happen sooner or later. The Space Viking was asking him if he knew what sort of a place Tetragrammaton was. Neo-barbarian, trying to re-civilize in a crude way. Small population, concentrated on one continent, farming and fisheries. A little heavy industry, in a small way, at a couple of towns. They had some nuclear power, introduced a century or so ago by traders from Marduk, one of the really civilized planets. They still depended on Marduk for fissionables. Their export product was an abominably smelling vegetable oil, which furnished the base for delicate perfumes, and which nobody was ever able to synthesize properly. "I heard they had steel mills in operation now," the half-breed Space Viking said. "It seems that somebody on Rimon has just reinvented the railroad, and they need more steel than they can produce for themselves. I thought I'd raid Tetragrammaton for steel and trade it on Rimon for a load of heaven tea. When I got there, though, the whole planet was in a mess. Not raiding, but plain, wanton destruction. The locals were just digging themselves out of it when I landed. Some of them, who didn't think they had anything at all left to lose, gave me a fight. I captured a few of them to find out what had happened. One of them had that pistol. He said he had taken it off a Space Viking he'd killed. The ships that raided them were the Enterprise and the Yo-Yo. I knew you'd want to hear about it. I got some of the local stories on tape." "Well, thank you. I'll want to hear those tapes. Now, you say you want steel?" Well, I haven't any money,